Why don't we just start, maybe with you, Mark, give your, go down the road as far as an assessment of where the cane-bearing market is right now, or other issues you might have.
Let's let Dave go first, and I'll tell him where he's wrong.
Fine with me.
How's that first setup? Yeah. Wow. So where is this working? Yeah. So where the market is now, and where we're going, that's a tough one. I think the good news. We'll start there. The Northwest continues to have a very solid reputation when it comes to quality of fruit. I mean, what you all are producing is appreciated out there in the marketplace. And it does make the job of selling it easier because we don't generally ever get beat on quality. What we have to offer coming out of the Northwest is fantastic product. So that's definitely the good news. Going into the near term, we came off a high price, low volume year on the Blackberry side. And I think there's some concern certainly that there's going to be a shockwave back from that pretty predictable pattern over the last few decades in this industry. I was a little concerned with how quickly I saw some customers pivot and buy fruit from other regions at lower prices. That happened a little bit too easy for me this last year. And so I'm concerned. I mean, it's good customers, good relationships. They didn't complain. They just bought other places. So we need them to come back for sure this next year so we don't destroy demand out there because we need to move this volume that is being produced. And, my concern in the short term again is that I think we're looking at a bigger crop. I mean, there's no secret. Everybody's talking about that potential. So we're going to need to sell more pounds this year than we sold last year, and we need to recover some of that lost territory. So it'll be interesting to see how the way that shakes out. The customers are going to come back. They're going to want the product, but we're going to have to hustle to get everything moved. That's the way I see it.
I agree. Well, I basically put down 4 things here that I think are challenges that I'll just go through briefly, and I've got a rebuttal to them too, but I think I'll just, because I didn't want to be just negative, but organic production, every one of our customers wants organic fruit, and in the Northwest that doesn't set up well for us because of our weather and basically the same things that make what Mark talked about as quality also work against us to be organic. Looking down the road, what I'm concerned about that is that organic is going to be growing in regions that's specifically not the Northwest, and I think that has an opportunity to take some of our market share away from us. I think to rebuttal that, I think organic is going to be really expensive. Supply and demand dictate pricing, and it's going to get very pricey, and we'll see if the consumer is willing to continue to pay. Joe can maybe fill you on what he's hearing on prices. I heard the other day like $3.50 a pound for organic raspberry. Are they going to be willing to do that long term? I don't know. Overseas production, Mark touched on that a little bit. It is interesting how quietly people just go back and, it's kind of like if you're buying a house, if the one you're looking at is too high, you may not say it's too high, you may just go find another one. And in some ways that happened this year. Quietly, fruit from outside our region has kind of took hold into some of our accounts that we are fighting extremely hard right now to hang on to. Because basically we've heard their message, we want quality, we want Northwest, yada, 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 until the price gets too high, and then all of a sudden they can't resist someone else's lower price. So we are fighting to hang on to that. I think every one of us here at the table and people who aren't at the table. So how do we rebuttal that? Well, they've been known to short people. They've been known when you say you want 10 containers, you might get 5. If there's a geographic problem with weather, their contract may not mean anything on a price. The price could go up overnight. And so the trust factor that we won back a few years ago, and why we seen kind of steady good increases, because they didn't trust some of the things that was happening outside the U.S. So now we've got to kind of get that one back again. Another new dynamic that I don't think we've looked at a lot recently is fresh market oversupply. It used to be fresh market was fresh market, and they just picked for fresh market. What didn't make it just hit the ground, and they didn't mess with it. They didn't have the infrastructure in place, and they didn't really care. Well, now that pricing is coming up on all of our food items, it all of a sudden makes more sense to take that fruit out of the field and do something with it. So as fresh market grows, you have more product that doesn't hit that when the market fills up, and so now they're finding ways to get it into the frozen market, whether it be puree or IQF or however form it is, it's finding a marketplace. So it is taking away some of our opportunities. And SWD plays into that. You know, they can't just let that fruit hit the ground anymore because it contaminates their hoop houses and whatever, and so they have to find it. They basically have found out they can get it out of there and they can at least recoup some of their money if not make money on it. And then the last thing was just 2004. I mean, 2004, we had freeze damage. We talked about freeze damage all throughout the winter. Our customers were all aware of freeze damage. They were all very concerned. We probably sent a message too quick that freeze damage to them is, number one, can I get the product, which is the biggest fear. Number two is your price is going to go up. And so it already triggered them to go start looking for potential, what am I going to do if I have freeze damage? And then I think what really hurt us is when it was all said and done at the end of the year, because our weather cooperated, we were able to IQF longer. We actually, I think as an industry, produced real close to the similar amount of IQF that we did in 2013. So we kind of got egg on our face because our buyers are going, well, what's going on? You had freeze damage, but yet we seemed, as everybody seemed to get or have access to the fruit. And we've already started looking at other avenues, and the price went way up, and there's still product available other than Marionberry on the marketplace today. So it kind of made us look like, in a way, it was kind of fabricated. I think everybody knows it wasn't fabricated, but I think the reality is we ended up much better off than anybody expected that we would be. And so we have to kind of fight through that. You know, that reality is that there was a pretty significant amount of IQF fruit, and the industry did fine. And so the question is, well, how does it go up 30% or 40%? What happened there? So I don't think anybody purposely did it, but the reality is now we've got to fight that back. We've got to get that back.
I do agree with that, all that.
Yeah, I do too. I think that's a good assessment. And there are a few things in here that I would emphasize again. I don't want to overemphasize it, but the organic product, that there isn't enough out there, and the pricing is what we would consider outrageous. I would say probably 3-4 years ago, prior to that, we would see a 20-25% premium on organic, and organic followed what the conventional pricing is. And then more recently, we've seen a complete separation: organic fruit versus an organic blackberry versus a conventional. It's like two totally different fruits, and the pricing doesn't have to correlate at all. It can be all completely on its own. And one of the good things, if we can get some type of organic growth here, it doesn't have to be a lot, but there can be a lot of residual benefit in the conventional as well. Because when organic buyers are coming to the Northwest, a lot of times they're buying conventional too. They're not only buying one. And so it just introduces, it gets more movement, more velocity of the fruit through the market. So again, I don't want to overemphasize it, but it is something that I don't foresee tailing off anytime soon. The other comments that I would make is the ongoing look, buyers looking for a thornless, continuing that, and more and more just asking for that. Let's see. Other comments I would have on the market. Again, I'm agreeing with everything that Mark and Dave said, so some of this will be a repeat. More recently, other things that I've heard of, Dave hit on a little bit. was in the fresh market. What's happening is the fruit that used to just hit the ground, this is particular in Mexico, a lot of that fruit just used to hit the ground and they wouldn't do anything with it. Now we're able to save it, put it in a drum, and we'll go into the juice market. So that could be putting a lot more pressure onto the juice, you know, what we used to be able to get here for the secondary markets, puree and juice. Now the imports are going to, you know, I can see having more of an impact in driving that pricing there. Let's see here. Also, just kind of wanted to hit, you know, being here and listening to some of the meeting, you know, listening to some of the discussion, just to give a seller's perspective on here, I'll give some of my experience. And realizing the markets that we try to approach, the buyers can be very different. There can be just the strictly price buyer who doesn't care if his berries are coming from Chile, Argentina, Mexico, the Northwest, and they just, to them it doesn't matter. And that's one whole segment of buyers. Unfortunately, it's bigger than what we like. We can either choose that we're going to compete in those markets or we're not. And we can go, and then there's kind of scales up to the buyers who want domestic product in North America. And those are the ones we want to really take care of before they go someplace else. And I think that's one that, those are hard to get back. So you're like this, like, we really can't afford to let them, or not bring them back and welcome them back in aggressively. Because once they get comfortable, then it just increases the difficulty of getting them back in. And then there's the regional buyers, and those are some of the programs we were talking about, these potential grant programs to talk to like the Burgervilles and people who want Oregon berries or they want Northwest berries. And again, those are very cherished buyers, and we really try to have to kind of hold their hand through a process and help them develop a product. And, that's time and money well spent, in my opinion, because they rarely will go anyplace else as long as they can get supply. They typically are willing to pay for it. I would say also, this meeting, I think it'll be interesting a week from now. We might have a little different perspective. We're probably a week early. This coming weekend, all of us will be down in California at the American Frozen Food Institute. And that's where really every major player in the frozen fruit industry from around the world will meet in one place. And it's kind of, there's really, nobody can pull the wool over anybody's eyes just by the pure numbers of people there, the number of meetings that go on. And it kind of sets the reset button for anything going on in the market. Nobody can really, you know, I guess promote their own agenda there because there's just too many people in that. So, you know, a week from now, but I think this is pretty accurate now. We know the Chileans right now had a good blackberry market, but they didn't have a tremendous volume. They are hitting a home run on the raspberries from everything I'm hearing right now. They're in the middle of it. How that, in fact, I don't know. I mean, that remains to be seen, but as of right now, those are things that we can kind of monitor on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis and see how it might impact us here. So,
I'll give you another lead question here. Unless somebody, has anyone got a question?
It is a follow-up on the organic.
Yeah. What's that?
What's the, you know, the growers are all said there's a lot of cost in organics, but no one's kind of stuck their neck out and say what the buyers are willing to pay for organics, because that may make a difference to the economic hurdles that a grower has for organics.
Did everyone hear the question? The question was, I'll try to paraphrase it, but if we have the right price for organics, it certainly changes whether somebody's going to grow them or even try it out here. I mean, the price that was thrown out at the beginning, it was like $3.50 a pound.
yeah.
For IQF organic, what's on
It's out of Chile. I heard a rumor, and I don't like past rumors, but I did hear pricing as high as $2.50 a pound to the grower for organic IQF quality red raspberry. That's atypical, so I would. But as far as I know, who knows? Because I don't think we've hit the ceiling on some of these programs, and demand is so incredibly high. Mark, you may have a bit to this.
It's organics, I mean, in the berry space in general, so raspberry, blackberry, blueberry, strawberry, if those products can be produced in a competitive and quality basis, because there's a lot of things like to eat organic fruit that aren't humans out there, like fungus. Those products are going to go their organic way. There's going to, over a period of time, the kind that berries have this, health image. I mean, they're a very healthy product, right? That's what people want to buy organically. And there's articles all the time coming out saying, if you're going to buy something organic, make it berries and some other items. So the question ultimately comes over long term: can growing them be done in an economical fashion, each individual berry, to compete with conventional? And I think, on something like maybe blueberry, I think that's well established. Blackberry, certainly in the Northwest, I think that story hasn't been fully told yet. So it's going to take some time, and there is no price. There's no magic number that we can say it's $3 a pound and the customers will always buy it. It's going to take some time to work itself out. But there is going to be organic pressure. The consumer, in general, if they can grab something that's organic or conventional and it appears to be the same product and it's close enough in price, it's drifting towards the organic side. And there's some big retailers that are pushing it. So I think it's just going to take some time, but I do, there's going to be consistent organic pressure for a long time.
What percentage of the market is organic? When you say that you take 100% of the berries grown conventional and organic, how much is actually making it into product, and what's your estimation on that?
I don't have the information I should have because we don't handle any organic blackberries. We have handled some in the past, but we don't handle any right now because they're too hard to grow and too expensive. So that's not a market that we serve. I don't know if you have a feel. It's
Not total.
I had a big company come in and say, we want to buy organic berries from you. And we're like, well, we don't have any right now, but we'd love to work with you in the future to deliver. And they said, well, why don't you have any? I mean, this is exactly how the conversation went. Big company, why don't you have any? I'm like, well, because you're buying all your fruit from South America, because that's where the less expensive organic fruit has been. They're like, but we don't want to buy down there, we want to buy up here. I'm like, right, but we'd like to deliver it, but it costs more up here. And I swear they didn't get it. So these things it takes time for everyone to figure out what the cost of production is, where they're going to buy it, how much is the quality and where it comes from important versus the label of organic. And I can't make a strict prediction on that. I don't know how big the market is, I wish I could tell you. And I think it'd be different from berry to berry, frankly. I don't think not every berry is going to be the same. And it's just going to take time.
So, Mark,
Yes.
were you just saying that this particular buyer was kind of expecting to be the price point of similar to conventional?
No. What I was really trying to point out is this particular company handles probably as much organic berry product as anybody in the United States. And they didn't understand why they had to buy it all in South America and couldn't buy it out of the Northwest. That was really the point that I was trying to get across. So it's not, you can't just say, well, this is the price, this is how it's going to work. There's no answer, right? It's a supply, demand, price point negotiation over a period of time to see how this works.
So you didn't get to the point of telling them that it's basically 3 years wait in order to get an organic berry crop established?
We explained, I mean, we did have a conversation, of course, because they can buy a lot. We were trying to set up a program, but that, and they required them to think 3 years out.
No.
Okay.
Do either of the other two companies, do either of you buy organics right now currently?
Yeah, does somebody have some?
Yeah.
2014, none.
No.
No, we buy organic product if we can find it. I think I can say this, but Scenic Fruit, I think, buys a lot of organic blueberries. There is a lot of organic strawberries because you can grow them 1 year in California and out they come. So that's one of the easier ones to grow organic. There's raspberries in California and in Chile. So blackberries are probably one of the hardest ones that We sold organic blackberries that we were able to get our hand on, small quantity this year, I mean, within a week, gone. So, I don't know if that answers your
Well,
question.
because I'm kind of hearing like if you grow it, they will come, sort of. But currently, there aren't hardly any growers growing because it's so difficult, of course, as we know. And so I was just trying to kind of suss out like what percent, I think as someone else was asking before, currently are you getting? Is it, 1% organic, 5%, 10%?
Well, I think it was pretty small for us. I think we maybe sold 5%, but Joe might have a better idea because he deals more with what's going on outside the US.
Historically, I've purchased and sold a lot of organic, and most of the organic I've gotten has come out of South America, honestly, because that's the only place you can get it, blueberries being the exception. And that's a very robust market. We don't see, I don't foresee that one making any big reverse. But it's going to be the first one to stabilize, just because supplies are going up, and there's a lot of fields in transitions, very large fields even in the Northwest. Right now, they're here, and the fruit isn't here, so they're visiting like Mark, and any amount of fruit, I mean, it could be 5%, 10%. You could sell, anybody has any organic raspberries and blackberries right now, they could be sold in an instant. I mean, it's one phone call, here's the price, we want to take it, and go. It's just, there's not the supply. And there's several things complicating it. Again, I don't want to overemphasize the organic, but I think it's just something that has to be on the conversation. Because even down there in South America now, there's companies up here going to the growers, bypassing the processors to contract with the growers and contract with processors in order to handle it because they don't trust the processors. And that's how aggressive they're getting to get this fruit. So it's really something, and I've been in the business for over 25 years. I've never seen anything quite like it. I don't see it, and again, I don't see it abating. There's a lot of these large companies, a lot of them publicly owned. This is one item, organic, they carry in their line. They cannot not have it on the shelf. It's part of their product line, and by golly, they're going to get it. And even at a loss, they would take it. I mean, and so this is how competitive it is, kind of at this fight right now. But to say where that equilibrium would be if we hit 20% organic and 80% conventional, the market would kind of stabilize. I couldn't tell you. But all indications are from the larger companies that the Costco's of the world, they just want all they can get, and that's they'll pretty much say they want everything they can get. They may not be willing to pay those top dollars, but they do pay a lot to drive the market.
Silly question. Are the growers in Chile required to play by the same rules to get organic fruit as the growers here?
Yeah, they have to follow all the NOP standards, and down there they're very well regulated. Their processing environment, their distribution systems are so well developed because they're so much into the export markets. They have been for so long. I think at any foreign company you have to be where we buy from what you do. But for the most part, yeah, I would say they do a very good job. Maybe some other countries, there's challenges that we could definitely sell if it comes to that, or Serbia or something like that, where there may be 100 growers that have half an acre of blackberries or raspberries, and how do they control that? That's always a big question mark. And they bring into one processor, is it really organic? And if it gets over here, or somebody tests it, it's a lot of things to be aware of if you're dealing in those markets that aren't quite as controlled.
It's okay with you guys. Let's move over on some other issues, because there's no way organic production is going to expand here anytime soon or quickly. And I'd love to see some kind of a transition plan in place. And maybe it would involve, if you guys really need product, let's see if we can work out some kind of situation where you can help balance the risk that a grower would have to take on to even try it at this point. But there's got to be some risk benefit there.
I don't want to to speak for Dave or Mark, but my guess is if any of you were interested in trying to grow organic and wanted to do it on any scale, there would actually be interest from customers who would take part in that and commit to the product, commit to pricing. I don't think it would be that hard to get some of these companies to say, hey, yeah, we'll buy everything that comes off this particular acreage. Right down to a price that works, so.
The difficulty with that is, it's like Mark was saying, they don't even realize what risk the grower is taking on to commit to that, or what quality product they're gonna have at the end. Because there's a good chance it'll be a complete failure if we get the wrong weather system at the wrong time, and we don't have the pest management or other things worked out in advance.
How are you gonna keep that stuff? Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you keep it out of commercial field, and how are you gonna keep it out of organic? These are huge, I mean, you're not gonna fix that problem. Can you have SWD in organic fruit? Probably not.
There'll be a place for conventional fruit. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
it's
No,
not,
I'm just
doesn't all
saying,
have to go.
Yeah, you're asking the grower to take all these risks by, I see a couple of huge problems. One, the SWD, and then secondly, to grow organically, there's more manual labor. Well, they're talking about having our labor go up to $15 an hour, where in Mexico or wherever else they're doing it, they're paying those guys 50 cents a day or whatever. So, I mean, it's stacked against us in all different kinds of ways.
Yeah, and
Let's shift. Because I think we've taken that one, and I appreciate I think we're all willing to work on it if it's a market opportunity. Talking about the conventional market, just to shift this a little bit, we're getting a shift in varieties here. So it looks like are you guys seeing any changes or pricing differences looking at Marions compared to Columbia Star, compared to Black Diamond? Is the demand for Marion changing at all? Yeah, just pass it over.
Okay, so what has been, of course, is that Marion's been a premium over what we'll call the Marion-like berries, Columbia Star, Black Diamond, even Catata could be in that group, and I see that continuing for the near term. But what's interesting is that premium also creates that incentive for people to use something else, right? I mean, if a customer says, I can have Marion, or I can have something that's a lot like Marion and maybe is thornless for 10 cents less, and if their customer doesn't care, they'll likely choose the less expensive route. So it'll be interesting to see if that price differential stays that same way going forward. And I honestly don't have a specific prediction. You can just kind of look at economics and guess. We don't really see a lot of, at least in the early stages, price differential between, say, Columbia Star and Black Diamond. For instance, I think the thornless issue going forward is going to be a big issue. Customers just become less and less tolerant of the risk of having a thorn or a bramble get all the way to a consumer. So there's going to be a continuing drumbeat to get rid of the thorns for sure. But there is still a committed fan base for Marion and Marion flavor from IQF all the way through puree and concentrate flavorings. So did that answer your question?
Sort of, but just trying to get at the changing market dynamics. I mean, thornless Marion's going to come in here soon, although it isn't. That will probably also start shifting things around into having, I'm sure you're going to market it as a thornless Marion versus other Marions, but probably it's going to come down to a thornless versus non-thorny. Is that what you guys
Yeah, I think for anything that isn't pureed long term, I mean, thornless is going to be the way it's going to go. I can't give you a time frame on that, but every year more and more customers are asking for thornless. That's been discussed for a long time. There's no such big surprise there. Anything you want to add to that?
Well, I mean, it's a concern of mine personally that Marion Berry and the other blackberries are going to see a differential. We've been talking about this for a couple of years at the commission level, but I think where we're at now is we're hearing in the meetings that we have like this one today, that the quality of these other berries is good. And that's something that the buyers have not been tuned into until here recently. So now we're saying these other berries are here. They have some properties to them that we think are as good or better than Marionberry. So now it's going to take off. There's no question in my mind that demand for these other berries is going to take off because they're good. And for years we kept saying, no, they weren't very good. I will say this, the ingredient people who are making a pie or a jam or a high-end product prefer the Marion because that flavor comes through better in that product. The bag guys, they want something that looks good. Now, can it taste good too? Yeah, I think we've proven to them that Chad and all the work everybody's done on these other varieties, you can also give them a good berry. So I think we're at a critical point where we have to say Northwest, and we have to figure out what of the Northwest do we want to say has quality in order to segregate us away from the Navajo or the other berry coming in from outside the U.S.
Got any comments?
No, I agree.
Anyone else got? I'll keep questioning. But the other question I got for you guys is capacity. If we're getting more acres in the ground supposedly, are we going to run into capacity of processing in, or new tunnels going in, or is there any concern about too concentrated a harvest? That could be a real issue.
Well, you need to not let your blueberries ripen so soon. I kind of have this down on my note. For me, for our company personally, we're unclear today. We are unclear of what demand is going to be for what we need. Next week, hopefully, we'll clarify a lot of that when we hear back from our customers. How much inventory do you have? What are your plans for next year, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But right now, we are not real clear on what the demand of our customers is going to be, and primarily it's some of those lower grade customers who didn't come in and buy last year the drum, the puree type stock. I mean, that in theory there was 10 million pounds less fruit produced, and it probably that's the market that didn't take it. So if those people come back, which I think that they will, there's no reason for them not to at this point. Will there be enough capacity to handle the volume that's coming at us? That's a concern. We all have that concern. It's going to really depend on the size of this crop and where's the new capacity at. You know, I don't know. So I don't have a good answer, but I think globally, demand is good. Usage is good. There's no reason we can't push this fruit through here if we don't panic. If we panic and all of a sudden make it an opportunity market instead of just looking at how do we move this fruit, get it out of the field, get it processed, and get it moved to our customer, I think we're going to be fine. But if people try to take advantage of the situation, then that's everybody's kind of worst fear, I guess.
But there are no new facilities or capacity expansion going on within the valley that you guys know of right now? Or are you works?
I don't think there was substantial new capacity added for this season compared to last. I think going forward, that's just going to be a function of what individual companies see as the opportunity and available capital, because it's very expensive.
Just a few days, shortening the season a few days makes a huge number. So when these blueberry waves hit last year, unfortunately we didn't have a big crop of blackberries, but if you take 3 days or 4 days extra production for every freeze tunnel in the Willamette Valley, that's a big number. So if for some reason the fruits separate a little bit, then I think there's a huge opportunity that there would be more capacity there out of default than there was last year. So.
Yeah, just on that quickly, I think one of the things that's going to be interesting to watch, with more and more blueberries coming on every year, and then obviously the plantings of blackberries, just reiterating what Dave said, I think one of the new stories is going to be a perennial conflict for capacity with those two crops. We already had a peak issue with blackberries, specifically Marion's and the like. And now we're growing an ever-increasing amount of blueberries in there almost at the same time, not quite, almost. So that will be an interesting story going forward. I think we'll be hearing a lot about that in the years to come.
One of the things that's changed that made the story a little more complicated, passed a little bit tighter. Even a few years ago, straight packed blueberries was very common. They were just packing, you wash them, sort of, put them in a box, take them to the cold storage and freeze them that way. And really anymore, to hit the premium markets and the markets you want to hit, they need to go through the IQF tunnel. So that's just that change in the processing method has tightened that space. Tightened the capacity.
What about the IQF versus puree versus juice markets? Is there a big difference, or is it being driven pretty much by IQF pricing and the others are coming along?
Well, I just tapped a little bit into it. Some of what I'm hearing now, some of the imported blackberry for the juice market is having an impact. Some of those foreign countries are coming in offering that particular product at a very low price, which how that bears out when it comes time for the season, I don't know, but definitely I think it is going to have an impact if they're looking at alternative sources, just because it's a global market. When you get into the juice market, that can be a pretty down and dirty business, and they're competing with people all over the world. So that's kind of what I'm seeing. Staying on the premium end, on the IQF end, is definitely where it's at. Getting even the puree stock versus the juice stock.
That's one thing on that. And so the way that market works in general now, if you've got Marion puree stock or juice stock, there is a specific demand for that. But once you tip over into Black Diamond or Columbia Star, which I'm very bullish on for the IQF market, that puree from those berries generally competes with any blackberry puree from all over the world or concentrate or whatnot. There's a little differentiation every now and then, but it really is pretty much down and dirty, straight on competition. So it gets really complex to try to predict how all this is going to work. So that's obviously a risk for processors as well. We're keeping an eye on that going forward as we try to increase the IQF. There's obviously the byproduct that happens at the same time, and then that market is challenging.
I think I would add to that, just on the positive side, was number one, what juice people need is bricks, and we have bricks here. Our fruit has more sugar in it, so there is an advantage there on having higher bricks. The other thing was that some of what I've heard in the last couple of years is that black used to be undesirable. How do you take something black and turn it into something that people want to put in their mouth? And that has changed now, where black has a healthy connotation to it with antioxidants and darker skinned fruits. And so I think we will start to see more black fruits incorporated in some of the juices, which could help.
I got just one last thing. Oh, Chip, something else. Just one last thing, unless you guys consider one. I've heard food safety really pushed hard the last couple of years, and you guys haven't even mentioned it yet. There was just a recall, I guess, in areas in Australia, food E. coli problem. Where do you stand with all the food safety regulations and everything else with growers right now? Do they all have to be certified? Are they pushing them to be? Are they asking for certifications on everything?
Well, just speaking personally, the food safety regulations that are going into place, I think, are good, and that's one of the selling points too. Northwest fruit, domestic fruit, and I think it only serves to protect Northwest fruit. The more proactive we are, from the farm side all the way down through the processing side, and the sales side, the traceability is only going to work in our favor, because product recalls are only going to increase with the amount of database they have now and the way they can track the CDC and always can track all these illnesses. It's just become more and more commonplace. I don't know how many of you are on the FDA recall list, but every time there's a recall listed, I get an email, and I get them every day, recalls for different products. And it just shows you how commonplace they are, and they can be very, I've been involved with them, they can be very complicated. It takes a lot of energy for a company to take care of these, and so, again, my feeling is the more that can be done proactive, the regulations are not gonna ever be repealed back, it's not gonna get easier, they're not gonna, make it lessen the regulation, I guess, for lack of a better word. So, I think it's something we just have to get used to, and it's only gonna get more and more complicated.
Well, you don't want an issue on your farm, and so basically, food safety rules are gonna be put in place to make sure you don't have an issue on your farm. And I don't think they're gonna ultimately be that big of an issue, but, you can't be using bad water, and there's just some things that can contaminate a large block of fruit that's an issue. But just like what Joe said, there's so many recalls today, the consumer's almost numb to it. So if you're not out there killing people, it's not a big news story anymore. It's somebody put an almond in this bag or ran, something. I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there that really doesn't make any sense to make a big issue out of it. But it is a big issue in our people's minds. So I can tell you this, that our plant and most plants are doing everything they can to test, because you do not want a recall. And so what happens on the front end of the product coming in and what happens on the product that's going out is going to become tighter. So what that means to you is if you bring something in from the field contaminated, it's going to eventually catch you. Personally, I don't think that's the issue. The issue is stuff coming in from places that are using dirty water, or the plants aren't taken care of correctly and they produce a whole bunch of stuff for 2 or 3 or 4 days before they realize they have problems in their facility. So I'm not sure it's something you need to be afraid of, but definitely, Tom, it's there, and it's there to protect the public. Nobody wants to see anybody get killed for something we're doing, so.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. The only thing I'll add is, I think Joe kind of touched on it. There's a lot more data being gathered now than there has been in the past. So just because you've always done something a certain way and it hasn't been a problem, doesn't mean it's not going to be found to be a problem in the future. So I really encourage everyone to do everything you can on the farms to produce safe food. There are so many more tests today, and there will be so many more in the future. Things will be found in the future that just weren't found in the past. So it's so much better to be proactive for every possible reason to get in front of that, as opposed to having somebody else notify you that you've got a problem.
Yeah, and one of the things too that's changing this is that the change in technology is phenomenal. What's happened in the last 5 years of rapid detection, what they could test, what they can find now in hours or in days used to take 2 weeks before. And I can see that coming down to where people are going to be able to pull samples out of crates or right off the finished product line and be testing for, E. coli, listeria, salmonella, and all this, and it'll be rapid and immediate testing. And it's just created, there's so much testing. All that has to be recorded, all of it has to be on hand. Any positives have to be recorded. So it's just the way the future is going, and there's so much money in the technology going behind this food safety effort.
I'm done. Anyone got any last questions?
You're not painting a very rosy picture of it, boys.
Well, thanks a lot, guys.